Back in the hospital room, Sonjin sat beside Minsu, who was clearly in excruciating pain. Her body twisted and turned with every contraction, and seeing her like that shattered his heart. He held her hand tightly in his, trying to offer her some comfort and urging her to breathe slowly and stay calm. Minsu, with tears streaming down her face, looked at him helplessly. The pain was unbearable, and she clutched onto his shirt as she let out a piercing scream, calling for the midwives and begging for the pain to stop. Distressed, Sonjin immediately stood and began gently rubbing her back, pleading with her to hang on, assuring her that it would all be over soon. But even he was starting to unravel inside. Outside the delivery room, both Minsu's mother and Sonjin's mother sat waiting anxiously. The silence between them was tense, but it was quickly broken when Sonjin's mother voiced her frustrations. She remarked that a home delivery would have been a better choice, where they could have monitored the situation more easily. She expressed that being at the hospital left them helpless, sitting there not knowing what was happening inside. With growing disapproval, she added that if they had listened to her and brought Minsu home, this situation could have been handled differently. Minsu's mother sat silently, consumed with worry for her daughter. Her thoughts were solely on Minsu's well-being, not on blame or regret. But Sonjin's mother continued, criticizing how Minsu had been cared for and implying that with better attention, the early labor might have been avoided. Unable to bear it any longer, Minsu's mother suddenly stood and faced her. Her voice, though controlled, was laced with frustration. She reminded her that her daughter was in pain, fighting through labor, and instead of offering support, she was busy pointing fingers. What they needed in that moment was to remain focused on the present, to pray and hope, not argue. Just then, Yuna arrived and immediately intervened, attempting to diffuse the tension. She reminded them that they were in a public space and that arguing helped no one. Minsu's mother, visibly upset, excused herself, saying she needed fresh air to clear her mind. Yuna turned to her own mother with a look of disappointment. She told her that she was always the one who was supposed to stay composed, the voice of reason, but in that moment, she was not being fair. Sonjin's mother, softening slightly, said that her concern was for her grandchild and admitted that she was scared that Minsu going into labor early could lead to complications. Meanwhile, back in the delivery room, Sonjin remained by Minsu's side, holding her hand and trying his best to soothe her. When the midwife returned and said they needed to examine her, he stood, reluctant to leave. Minsu gripped his hand tightly, her eyes pleading with him not to go. He bent down and whispered reassuring words, promising her that everything would be fine, and that he would be right back as soon as the doctors were done. Tears filled her eyes as she reluctantly let him go, and he kissed her hand before stepping out of the room. Hours passed slowly in the waiting area. The tension was thick, and every minute felt like an eternity. Eventually, the midwife returned and approached Sonjin. His eyes immediately searched her face for any hint of news. With a somber expression, she looked down at her file before telling him that she needed to speak to him privately in her office. A wave of panic washed over Sonjin as he repeatedly asked if Minsu was okay. The midwife, avoiding direct answers, insisted that it was something they couldn't discuss in the hallway and that he needed to follow her. With that, she turned and walked away. Sonjin stood frozen for a moment, his heart pounding in his chest. Fear gripped him. His mind raced with possibilities, but he quickly shook it off and forced himself to move. Gathering all the strength he had left, he followed the midwife toward her office, bracing himself for whatever news awaited him.